The Verdict with World Pool.
Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict, which will focus primarily on the Irish Champions Festival from Leopardstown and the Curragh at the weekend. But we are going to start elsewhere. We'll go to Leicester on Tuesday for a very interesting two-year-old performance. Here are the winners from that day. Sweet Kiss taking the opening contest, 2.71 above the Racing Post standard. All of the other times on the card were better, including Tulane, who completed 7 furlongs in 1:22.84. The next two 7-furlong races, well, she was quicker than Coup, but not quite as quick as that Blue Courvoisier. But she put up a really nice performance at Tulane. Her RaceiQ time index was good as well. Let's have a look at the whole card. And remember, these scores out of 10, and very good time for the 6-furlong contest at the end of the card, 9.5. She got an 8.3. And what those time indexes are indicative of are fast ground. I think the ground was as described, good to firm. Good in places, possibly just good to firm, I think, given how good those times were with a meeting average of 8.2. So, Tulane continuing the really good run of the Owen Burrows team. He's had a tremendous season. He's striking it well over 20%. Here she is, coming from stall number 7. She beats Xanthos from 1, and Lady Roysia came from stall number 9. This was her second career start. She had one on debut at Newbury in good style. It looked a bit green that day. She was much better here, a lot more professional. Although she was only 5th fastest to get to 20 miles an hour, 2.7 seconds. But none of the others were very quick out of the stalls. And the early pace was not frenetic. They're going downhill here at Leicester, but they're going pretty steady early on. 14.81, 11.42. 11.3 the first 3 furlongs for the leader, and those were rated as slow against the RaceiQ pass. So it was always going to turn into a little bit of a sprint, and you can see how well she is going there in the Shadwell colours. She's absolutely cantering at this point. William Buick on board her on this occasion, and she shows a fine turn of foot to see off the well-backed favourite who's over on the far side. And her final 2 furlongs of 22.63 up the hill were really impressive. It meant her finishing speed percentage 104.59, well above the par. And this is where she's just about to get rolling and quicken up. And she fires here her penultimate furlong of 11.06, rated as very fast. And that turn of speed up the hill has seen off Xanthos and the others readily. She backs it up with 11.57. That's very fast as well, and hits the line nice and hard. Now, normally, they don't finish off that strongly here at Leicester because they use energy down the hill and then they get tired coming back up the hill. Here, because they went quite steady down the hill, she was able to finish off strongly and post a pretty high finishing speed percentage for races over this trip at Leicester. But that is also a function of the speed that she's got, and there's going to be an awful lot more to come from her. She's by Lope de Vega, and her dam won the City of York and was very useful. Time form rated 112, her dam, Talaib. So I think there's an awful lot more to come from Tulane, and we have to put her down as being a potential 1,000 guineas candidate for next season on the basis of this. You perhaps would like to have seen her quicken as she did off a stronger pace early on, but when they can quicken like she did and post the sectionals that she did, you know that they've got an engine and they've got plenty of raw ability. And I think the 1,000 guineas at Newmarket is on the agenda for her, possibly taking a trial, a better race than this, towards the end of the season. But what we know is that she's pretty useful already. Here are the sectionals. They're colour-coded, very slow and slow early on, as donated by those blue colours. And then you can see her 3 fast furlongs. She was the only horse in the race to do 3 fast furlongs on the bounce, 11.21, 11.06 and 11.57. And nothing could live with her through that final furlong, 11.57, 11.89 the runner-up, 11.97 the third. In short, she's absolutely thrashed them. She's done them for speed, and she looks very useful already after 2 starts. OK, let's turn our attentions for the rest of the show to the Irish Champions Festival over the weekend, starting, of course, with Leopardstown on Saturday afternoon. Here are the winners from that card. It was an exceptional card. We had the Matron Stakes won by Fallen Angel. We also, of course, had the big one of the weekend, the Irish Champion Stakes, Delacroix winning that. And a number of the times were understanded, including Delacroix, but also Alakazi and Fallen Angel in the Matron. So some good times there on decent ground, I think. Let's have a look at the RaceiQ time index. That'll tell us what we need to know about the ground, which was officially good to yielding. I suspect there wasn't much yielding there. Looking at these scores out of 10, they're all pretty good. They're all just about above average. 6.4 was the overall average, but there were some decent times in there, including Delacroix with a 7.2 out of 10, 7.8 for Fallen Angel, the best time, and a 6.6 for Diamond Necklace. So overall, I think slightly better than the described going. I think we're dealing with good ground, and horses were very much prepared to let themselves down on it. So let's have a look at Diamond Necklace then in the opening contest. This is the Ballylynch Stud Ingabel Stakes Fillies. It's a listed event, and it is over 7 furlongs for 2-year-olds. In which she puts up a remarkable performance, I think, to win this. There she is towards the rear of the field. She beats Sukanya and Caught You Sleeping back in 3rd spot, who have a positional advantage to a degree over her in the early part of the race, and she ends up with plenty to do. But she didn't help Christophe Soumi. Look, she's very slow out of the stalls, 7th fastest to 20 miles an hour. 3.26 seconds to get up to speed. Very slow indeed, and despite the fact that she'd already had one run and won it, she was still a bit sleepy in the gates, and now she's a good few lengths off the pace. Unlike the Tulane race at Leicester, this is more evenly run. They went a much better gallop. Venosa taking them along at this stage from Sukanya. 14.08, 11.76, so sub 12 there, a 12.1, a 12.29. They steadied a little bit going round the bend, filling up to kick a little bit in the home straight. And Diamond Necklace has got an awful lot to do. Her 5th furlong of 11.99 was when she starts to get rolling. It's just a par number. But I think Christophe Soumi really wants to get rolling here. He's conscious that the first 3, or are quite a way ahead of him at this stage. The 2nd and 3rd have got 5 or 6 lengths on him. So he tries to get going with that 11.99, and then he really asks her to pick up, and she responds in spades. 11.39, a very fast penultimate furlong. No other horse in the race could get anywhere near that. The 2 in front of her were running slower than 12 seconds at that point, and her final furlong is a lot stronger than anything else. 12.52, rated as fast, and it's just hands and heels from Soumi in the closing stages. I like the way the 3rd horse is boxing on, Caught You Sleeping, who'd been up with the pace early on, and it was an even pace, entitled to get tired, but kept on reasonably well and probably wants further. And I think Diamond Necklace will stay further as well. You'd have thought the Fillies Mile, a step up in grade, might be something that the Aidan O'Brien team want to try with her. She was pretty impressive the way she quickened. Those 2 final furlongs took her to the front pretty readily. I don't think Soumi's ever had to give her a crack with the whip at all. It's just hands and heels, and there's going to be an awful lot more to come from her. She's got, as you'd expect, a nice pedigree. She's by St Mark's Basilica, out of a Dan Silly mare. And although the overall time here was just okay, wasn't really rapid, the way she went about this from a slow break, from a positional disadvantage, was very impressive, and she's quickened up really nicely in the closing stages. And those people that were clamouring for Ryan Moore to come back, wanted him back, desperately wanted him, will have been pleased that Christophe Soumi got the job done here on Diamond Necklace. So when we looked at the Tulane race at Leicester, we saw a sort of sea of blue through the early furlongs where they went steady, but it's not here. If you go down to Venosa, who made the running, you can see the par for the first couple of furlongs, then a fast furlong, and then par. So they went reasonably strongly here, and Diamond Necklace was very impressive with how she quickened up. Kilishi Warrior also quickened up quite well in the closing stages. Was a long way behind the winner, but did fire a couple of decent final furlongs. But Diamond Necklace able to quicken off a decent gallop and overcome some adversity. Group 1 races await. Okay, let's move on to the big race of the weekend. It was the Royal Bahrain Irish Champion Stakes, Group 1, of course, over 10 furlongs. Delacroix sent off favourite for Aidan O'Brien and Christophe Soumi, and he got the job done in a fast time, a time index of 7.2, with the average being 6.4. Would take it from the start. Delacroix from stall 8 beats Anmart from 3 and Royal Champion from stall number 7. And in the early part of the race, it looked like Christophe Soumi might want to go forward and maybe make the running with him. Of course, he'd made all the running to win here at Leopardstown earlier in the year, but he takes him back. His break speed was okay, 2.66 seconds, so he was 4th fastest to 20 miles an hour. But I think Christophe Soumi here was happy that the pace was even enough and he was able to drop in. Stable companion Mount Kilimanjaro setting a pretty good tempo out in front. He went 11.84 for the second furlong, and the next 3 furlongs were quite quick actually, 11.53, 11.68, 11.95, so all sub 12-second furlongs. I think that's why Christophe was happy to just drop in. He jumped and taken him forward, thinking he might be very handy on him, and then he realised the pace was pretty good, and he just thought, well, I'll sit in. Royal Champion, who's run a big race and what was an excellent weekend for Carl Burke, he sat in its second spot here. Through these very even fractions, the pace was unrelenting from Mount Kilimanjaro. He did those 3 sub 12-second furlongs, and then at 12.14 he started to get tired through the 7th furlong and dropped away quite rapidly thereafter. But the big point about this race is the move that Christophe Soumi makes will pick him up with just 3 horses behind him, and he begins to make his move through the 7th furlong, where he goes 12.31. Anmart right on his tail, chasing him, but Soumi goes first, and he steals a length or 2 from Anmart. Furlong 8, 12.19, a fast furlong through the 8th furlong. There he's gone. Anmart's, well, he's trying to go through and follow him through on the bridle, but Soumion's gone and got aggressive and stolen a length and a half or so, and that was significant. 9th furlong of 11.83, and finally he finishes off with a slow furlong of 13.02. The interesting point from the sectionals is that the 3rd last furlong and the 2nd last furlong, even though Soumion had kicked on Delacroix, Anmart was faster in pursuit. But Soumi stole a length or 2 off the bend, and that was really significant in how this race panned out. You can see Anmart just chasing him through, but Soumion's much more animated, and he's away and gone. In behind, Royal Champion's run well. He got very tired late on. He tended the pace. He was quite close to Mount Kilimanjaro early on. He's a 13.15 final furlong, so he's got pretty tired late on. And overall, they're just finishing off evenly through the last couple of furlongs here. Finishing speed percentage always bang on par, what you'd expect over 10 at Leopardstown. 100.96 for Delacroix, which is just under the par. But you've got to credit Super Soumi with this success on Delacroix. He is a horse with a blinding turn of foot. He showed that twice, once in the Ballysacks here at Leopardstown and once in the Derby trial as well. He came from an impossible position to win the Eclipse. The Juddmonte didn't work for him. Once again, he's quickened up and won this race by moving first on Anmart. I'm not saying Anmart would have beaten him if Anmart had gone with him, but it would have been a little bit close. You can see the 7th furlong, 12.1 Delacroix, but Anmart, 12.13, 12.16, then Anmart quicker through that mile point there, 12.19 for the winner. And you can see Anmart 11.9, 11.83 Delacroix. And in the final furlong, Delacroix was much sharper than Anmart. But I think you credit Soumi with this success on a really good racehorse, Delacroix. He could come back to a mile, such is the speed that he's got, but one wonders whether, given that he's a Dubawi out of that brilliant mare Tepin, whether the breeding sheds beckon for him now. Right, let's turn our attentions to Sunday now. Have a look at the winners from the Curragh, day 2, of course, of the Irish Champions Festival. It was an interesting day's racing. There was quite a strong headwind. It eased off a little bit through the card, but it was fairly fierce early on. A Tango Flair, tipped up by Johnny Ward on the Racing TV website at 50-1, won the opening contest. We're going to have a look at Precise, who completed 7 furlongs in 129.13 in what was the Group 1 Moy Glare. Arizona Blaze won the big sprint. Zavateri took the national stakes for Eve Johnson Horton, remains unbeaten. Al Riffa won the Irish Ledger. We'll have a look at that as well. Shaul put up a really taking performance in the last for a handicapper as well. And that was the best RaceiQ time index on the day, Shaul, for Johnny Murtagh in the last race. Let's have a look at the indexes now. You can see there, look at that. It's 9.5 for Shayul. The races we're going to have a look at were not quite as quick, particularly Precise. Race number 3, that's a function of the pace of the race and the strong headwind as well. Al Riffa, fairly good time, 6.8 in the Irish St Ledger. So let's get stuck into these races. We can start with the Moyglare Stud Stakes, Group 1 for fillies. There's Precise from stall number 7 for Aidan O'Brien and Rona Whelan. Beautify comes from 6 and was 2nd. Venetian Sun for Carlberg from 1 was 3rd, and they'll be ruining what happened in this race, I think, the Carlberg camp, because Venetian Sun never got a fair go at it. Break speed, slow, very slow. 3.23 seconds, 7th fastest to get to 20 miles an hour. So really slowly into stride, Precise. And it was Composing who went forward. Now, Composing was the number 1 from the Aidan O'Brien yard, Christophe Soumi on board, and got a fairly easy lead. The first 2 furlongs were rated as pretty quick, and then Soumi really dabbed on the brakes and gave Composing every chance to win from the front. And I suspect, given her head carriage in the closing stages, which you might be able to spot, I'm not sure everything was right with her. 3rd furlong was slow, 12.55. 4th furlong, Soumi slowed it even more, 12.78. And then a 12.22 as he got a little bit of pressure from Beautify to the outside. But given the run of the race, you'd have to say that the favourite had every chance. Now look at Venetian Sun, boxed up, nowhere to go, Clifford Lee. And look at Rona Whelan on Precise coming up to the outside. He's not letting Clifford Lee out at all. Holding him in, boxing him in, nowhere to go, still stuck. Beautify coming to get to Composing. And now Precise quickens, 11.34 to get upsides Beautify, and then a 12.25 rated as fast through the final furlong. The only horse in the race to run a fast final furlong. Now Venetian Sun's out and can just open up now and gets up for 3rd to deny Composing. But that was a race that just did not pan out in any way for the Carlberg team and Venetian Sun. Rona Whelan was really good on. He was really good on Precise. He's come up to the outside there. He's had a little look to see where Venetian Sun is. He's no way going to let that horse out. And then Precise quickens up, and her penultimate furlong rated as fast and better than all of her rivals. I'm not sure how good a race this necessarily is. She came here Precise after a success at Goodwood in the Prestige. She was good that day. Even better here. This is a step up in grade for her. I think the runner-up's a filly who's going to want a fair bit further in the end. She was decent when she beat Lady Iman here last time. Look at the rail, Composing. Look at the head carriage. That's what I mean. She had every chance according to the sectionals. Soumi saved plenty of petrol, but she's not going forward with him. Head to one side, cock to her left, and he's not hard on her thereafter. I'm not sure everything was right with her in the closing stages, but Precise has won this. It was a bit of equine bingo, this, wasn't it, in terms of the Aidan O'Brien runners, and Precise came out on top, probably, well, shocking her trainer and owners. But anyway, she got the job done, and it might not be the best fillies Group 1 that we see for 2-year-olds through the rest of the autumn. But there are her details. She was very slowly into stride compared to the rest of them. She did manage to hit to over 40 miles an hour, and her fastest furlong was the 6th furlong, the penultimate one. That's the one that she surged to the front with. It was 11.34. That was rated as fast against the par, and she backed it up with a 12.25, also rated as fast as against the par. So in a race that was relatively strongly run, she's finished off quite nicely here. And there's certainly going to be more to come from her and Beautify, but Venetian Sun, I think you've got to go put her down as being very unlucky. OK, let's move on to the Vincent O'Brien National Stakes, Group 1 for the 2-year-old colts. And it was a very interesting renewal this time around. Saba Desert was in there unbeaten, Zavatiri unbeaten as well. And it was Zavatiri from stall 1 who prevailed, from Gestat from 5 and Italy from stall 6. So 2nd, 3rd and 4th in this race for Aidan O'Brien, but undone by Eve Johnson-Horton trained Zavatiri, who remains unbeaten. Very slow start on the back foot early on, 3.79 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour, and 6th fastest in the race, so very slow indeed. And was rated just in behind the pace after that. Charles Bishop couldn't do much after such a slow break. He briefly niggled Zavatiri along to pick the bridle up. But OK now, and travelling really strongly, remains unbeaten. Winner of the Vintage at Goodwood, winner of the July Stakes at Newmarket as well. And gets into a real war here with Gestat, who runs perfectly well. and both of them have got very similar data. It's just tracking Gstaad at this stage. Dorset took them along. They were fast through the first couple of furlongs. There was no messing around early on, and then they just steadied a little bit through the next couple, and then the sprint was on through the final 3 furlongs. This was impressive from Zavatiri, coming from the back of the field. 11.3 for the third last furlong. The 5th furlong was the fastest in the race and went from 4th to just about in front. It's just headed Gstaad there. That was a quick furlong by Charlie Bishop. I think he wanted to get rolling quite a way out, and he did so. Then in 11.03 after that, and finished off with a 12.22, rated as par. And you won't be surprised to hear that Gstaad ran exactly the same for the final furlong. They both ran 12.22. And it was all on the nod in the end, and it was just Zavatiri who prevailed. One gets the impression that Zavatiri will be okay going up in trip. Eve Johnson-Horton suggested that when interviewed afterwards by Kevin O'Ryan, and that they'll go Dewhurst, but he'll have no problem with a mile next year. Gstaad, you don't know really. You wonder whether he wants to come back in trip and whether he'd be a Commonwealth Cup horse going forward. I'm sure Aidan O'Brien will make the right decision. There was a little bit of a steward's inquiry, just a bump after the line, really. They had a look at it, but there was never going to be any problems at all. There's very little in the data between these two horses, but it was that 1 furlong where Charles Bishop surged to the front from behind Gstaad of 11.3 that stands out when you look at all of the RaceiQ numbers. The finishing speed percentages are very similar. 106.59 the winner, 106.45 the runner-up. So just a little bit quicker in the final 2 furlongs, the winner than the runner-up, but very little in it at all. The bottom 3 there, they all finished the race off slowly through the last 3 furlongs. They didn't run their races at all, particularly Sabre Desert, really disappointing. He'd won his previous 2 starts. And those numbers, as you can see, are all very similar. But I just point you to furlong 5, and Zavatiri's 11.3 sat in 4th place, which took him to the front and backed it up with 11.03, and just was able to hold on as Gstaad came home in exactly the same time as him through the final furlong. A tremendous race for the National Stakes, and fantastic Group 1 success for Eve Johnson-Horton. OK, let's go and have a look at the Coma Group Irish St Leger, Group 1, over 1 3/4 on Sunday afternoon at the Curragh. And, well, it was won by Al Riffa stepping up in trip. Tremendous performance from him under Dylan Brown McMonigal for Joseph O'Brien. He beat the hitherto unbeaten Amiloch into 2nd spot. We'll pick them up now. Al Riffa came from stall number 5 and was immediately taken back by Dylan Brown McMonigal. 2nd, Amiloch is prominent, and Al Kareem, the 3rd, is prominent as well. And that did them no favours at all, because the pace early on was furious. There was no let-up in the early part of this contest. Dylan Brown McMonigal from a slow break, 8th fastest to 20 miles an hour, 3.12 seconds, happy to sit last, wary of the very strong pace that they were going, and it was unrelenting. Al Kareem did well to finish 3rd, really, given that he's on the lead, but it's a contested lead, and the first 4 furlongs were all rated as fast as against the RaceiQ par. I can give you Al Kareem's. They were really quick. 13.43 from the stalls, and then 11.9, 11.94 and 12.16, the sort of fractions you'd see in a mile race or a 1.25 mile race, not in a 1 3/4 contest. So they've gone very hard for the first half mile, and it wasn't really any relenting after that, because 12.55, 12.81, 12.85 for the next 3 furlongs to get them through 7 furlongs is rated as fast against par as well. So this was a severe test of stamina with a headwind up the home straight, and Al Riffa, who's hitherto untried at this trip, saw it out really well under what has to be considered a brilliant ride from Dylan Brown McMonigal. He has rated this horse absolutely perfectly off this strong gallop. He wanted nothing to do with the early pace. He's happy to sit out the back. Now, I know they were riding him to get the trip because they were probably a little bit worried about the trip. His horse has been run well in the clips, of course, behind City of Troy. He's also won a national stakes here over 7 furlongs. So he's a horse that wasn't perhaps necessarily certain to stay. So they were riding him to get the trip. But nonetheless, this was really good from Dylan Brown McMonigal. He's miles off the pace there, 2nd last, but he's not panicking at all. Finishing speed percentage tells us how well he rated him, 100.87. So he's run pretty evenly through this. He hasn't quickened. This isn't a race that anything's going to quicken, because they've gone so hard that they're running out of gas up the home straight, and they've all finished slowly. The winner's final 4 furlongs were slow or very slow as against par, but that doesn't matter because he was faster than the others who were on fumes from 3 furlongs out. So his furlong 12, that's slow, 12.67, but it's quicker than all of the others. It's good enough. Amilok's found himself in front perhaps sooner than he wanted to be with Al Kareem weakening. Target on his back for Al Riffa, 12.56, a very slow furlong, but that takes him past Amilok, who's on fumes at this stage. And then the 14th furlong, 12.98, really slow. But he's good enough. He's just kept going better than everything else off a very strong gallop. And they finished really well strung out. They've all had a hard race, I think, given that those first 7 furlongs were very fast, courtesy of Al Kareem. And Al Riffa has picked up the pieces in style. And now he has got plenty of options over a 1.75 miles and further. Next season, possibly a cup horse. But before that, the Melbourne Cup beckons. I think Joseph will be very keen to have a crack at that, for which he's favourite now. And he's proved that he's stayed a strongly run 1.75 miles. So 2 miles in the Melbourne Cup would be no problem for him at all. His time index of 6.8, better than the meeting average of 6. And he really is a very talented racehorse. Disappointments in behind. One in particular to mention is Illinois, first time cheek pieces. He raced in 5th in the early part of the contest, but he dropped away under pressure. He didn't find much at all. Maybe you should give him perhaps another chance over 2 miles, because he's run really well at that trip this season. But this was a disappointment from him. But Al Riffa just keeping going best. Dylan Brant-McMonigle saving as much as he could early on in the race. That was crucial. This is where he raced, in brackets, 8th or 9th early on, going through quite quick sectionals. And then, in the end, just keeping going. And I know they're not very fast, that second column, 12.93, 12.11, 12.33. But they were good enough to get him past all of the others who were very slow indeed. We could go through some of the others. I don't think anything got, well, near 12 seconds for the last couple of furlongs, but he did. So, good staying performance from Al Riffa. He proved comprehensively that he stays a 1.75 miles in a strongly run race. Lots more to come from him. OK, that's a look back at what happened over the weekend at Leicester on Tuesday. Time now, though, for the Whirlpool Race of the Week. Yeah, we're going to take you to Australia, to Flemington, for the Group 1 Crown Makybe Diva Stakes. It was over 1 mile, and it was won by Mr. Brightside, ridden by Craig Williams. This was a little bit of a shock success, even though this horse has won this race twice in the past. There in front gets the better of Aliana in 2nd, and Via Sistina was back in 3rd spot, sent off the odds-on favourite Via Sistina. Things did not pan out well for her or for James McDonald, but they did for this leader who loves Flemington and got a very soft lead out in front, was able to dawdle along for much of the race, and then it turned into a dash up the home straight. This winner, Mr. Brightside, is winning his 10th Group 1 in Australia. He's a very talented racehorse over a mile. Via Sistina was looking for her 10th win since going down under, but she couldn't quicken as well as the winner, who got first jump on them and quickened off the bend and came home really strongly in the closing stages to land this for Ben Will and GD Hayes. And it was another success here at the track for this horse, who's got a fine turn of foot and completed the mile in just under 1 minute 40, 138.75. If he'd gone even 12s out in front, it'd have been around about 136. So you can tell from that just how steadily he's gone. The dash is on now. James McDonald not panicking, but he wants to get moving on Via Sistina. Wide, forced 3 wide, giving away ground and being asked to quicken and catch a horse who's already quickening in front of her. And it proved to be an impossibility, because this winner is very useful and was not for catching. Ran out to a ready enough winner in the end. Group 1 winners in behind. Good race, replete with quality, but it was decided by tactics. Craig Williams from the front, getting his own way, saving energy for a fast finish. Mr. Brightside takes the Makybe Diva once again. That was the Whirlpool Race of the Week. Well, that concludes this week's edition of The Verdict. I hope you enjoyed looking back at all of the action from Leopardstown and the Curragh, and also that very nice 2-year-old Tulane at Leicester early last week. Christophe Soumi, absolutely brilliant on Delacroix in the feature event, the Royal Bahrain Irish Champion Stakes. It was a tremendous turn of foot that horse showed, and he was the star on show this week.
The Verdict with World Pool. Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.